and Carol is going to sing. And I just got the notice that the meeting is being recorded, so that's pretty serious, Carol. So I'm going to play a little intro just to set up the tune. Then Carol's going to sing a cappella because unfortunately accompaniment on Zoom takes a lot of calibration and practice that we didn't have time for. So we'll do a little intro. Then Carol's going to sing the song through a cappella, which is a very challenging thing to do. Props to her for stepping up to do it. And then I'm going to take it out with kind of a little bit more of a bluegrassy, bluesy version. This song has also become a banjo standard. So that's what we're going to do. So sit back, enjoy for a couple of minutes before we get into the hard work of saving our nation.
So I just want to say that right now I'm having trouble finding the low note of the starting note. So I may just
All right, here we go. So we had originally planned this as a sing-along, but because of that Zoom issue, we were advised not a good idea. But if you want to sing along, go ahead. All right, here we go.
Tis right, tis a gift to be simple, tis the gift to be free, tis the gift to come down where we want to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and pain. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend, we will not be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, till by turning we come round right.
So that was a little bluegrass flair there. And we will be sending a follow-up email after the meeting. And in that email will be a link to a version by Yo-Yo Ma and Alison Krauss, which is just a soul crusher, beautiful piece of music. So stay tuned for your follow-up email.
Well, John, take it away. Please inspire us.
Okay. Okay, everybody. We want to give you a review of what we accomplished this last year. First of all here. And so this is a review of some of the highlights of our year together. One of the things I would want to do, first of all, is to say, what we're doing, we feel is a noble purpose. And we want to talk about that a little bit first. Why us? Why do we think that elders have a role here? Well, first of all, we can all, because we're all here and we are all aware, the state of America has some big problems. And we're concerned because this is about the future. This is about the future of our children, grandchildren, future generations, and all life. And so we're naturally pulled together. Pulled together to take action. So just briefly, climate change is a threat to all life, and we know it. And we could be doing so much more if our country was pulling together on this. And then on top of that, our democracy is being threatened. And part of the legislators who are pulling the opposite direction are either ignoring or diminishing the climate action that needs to be taken. And on top of that, they're taking away our freedoms. Well, everywhere, our right to vote, especially those marginalized people, are losing their right to vote. And we have to take that on. And we realized this is not sound democracy. So in general, elders must organize to take action because we have the resources to do so. And so it became clear to us that EAN, our organization, Elders Action Network, needed a pro-democracy activist group. And so we went about putting that together. We founded it, we supported it, and we're organized for action. And I'm going to say a little bit about that. It's time for us to really reflect on what we did this last year, celebrate that, and then project ahead a little bit. So we had a year of progress, and here are some of the highlights. First of all, we've had these community meetings every month, and when we can, we get noted speakers to help us. And here are 4 that we had this last year. In June, we had a gun safety presentation from Kim Craig, a member of Moms Demand Action. In September, talked about the attack on our education by Juliana Per-Blogov from Johns Hopkins. October, the corruption in our state legislatures by David Pepper, who is one of the leading Democrats of Ohio. And then November, we've had Bill McKibben talking about the connection between climate and pro-democracy. We will talk about our Get Out the Vote activity this year and countering voter suppression, educating ourselves regarding political corruption, authoritarianism, and the attack on our rights. We are in the process of forming and mentoring state teams built to last, and we'll briefly talk about that. So first of all, I want to talk about gun safety and Kim Craig's presentation. She's a member of Moms Demand Action, which is a poster of from them and there. The facts, gun violence is really with us in big time. Americans' death rate from gun violence is 13 times greater than anywhere else in the first world countries. It's in fact anywhere else in the world. And it disproportionately affects minority people, the Black, the indigenous people, people of color, communities everywhere. So Moms Demand Action was formed as part of a greater organization called Every Time for Gun Safety. And Kim Craig, I believe from Florida, came and spoke to us about what they're doing. They actually have 10 million supporters with chapters in every state. And step by step, they're making significant victories of getting common sense laws to provide gun safety for everyone, especially for our children. This last year, President Biden signed a bill that was the first one in some 20 years advancing gun safety for us. And there's still much more to do. So we always ask the question, what can we do? How can we help? Well, for this one here, we need to determine where our candidates stand. This is the one thing we need to ask them. Where do you stand on gun control? And we note that. We know where we stand on it. We want action there. And when we learn where they stand, we can communicate to our communities. We can educate our communities. Say, here's where our candidates stand. We don't have to tell them how to vote. We just tell them, here's what they stand on these issues. And, you know, really, we want to elect electors who really are supportive of gun safety. We have to get there. Next one is about attack on our public education. And this was presented by Professor Juliana Per-Blogov, and she's with Johns Hopkins University. She was an alum of a new college in Florida. and she got really concerned about what was going on in New College. It's really a case study of extremists that are they dismantling the board. The board is an extremist board that's dismantling the curriculum at New College, making it very conservative and taking rights away. It's an instance of national movements underway to weaken and replace public education. There's some that would get rid of public education altogether. And it's one of many threats from this authoritarianism that is getting a hold in our country. And so Juliana was part of the group that pushed back on this by creating Save New College of Florida. She told us about this, and she gave us a lot of information about where this is going on. And particularly, she addressed the question, what can we do about this? What can we do about this? So again, we need to learn about what's going on in our own communities and educate them about it. And I could say it happens right here where I live in Northern California. If it happened here, it can happen anywhere. And so we need to support our school boards and our local government because they're all under attack. And we need to be aware and take that on. The next one is about state legislature corruption. And our speaker was David Pepper, who is a politician, a Democrat from Ohio. He's an author and an educator. And he has written this book, one of several books he's written, called Laboratories of Autocracy. And in this book, he points out what's going on behind the scenes in Ohio in the legislature. And what he says and what he reported is that there is legislation being imposed by big dark money and like organizations like ALEC and similar that are buying our politicians to get them to pass laws that are pro-business, anti-regulation, and so on forth. And this Ohio legislation activity is largely unknown, and it's done in secrecy, again, by autocracies. And he points out that the same things are going on in other states, such as Iowa and Texas and Wisconsin and so forth. And that he is, I exposed this for Ohio, and he's identifying countering moves that we can all learn and take action accordingly. And one thing he points out is this is not something that we do during election years and then forget about it the rest of the time, because the other side doesn't do that. They work at this constantly.
Michael.
All right. Have to do the same. We have to, we're in a battle for our democracy, and it's a long battle, and it's a continuous battle. So what can we do? Well, we need to become aware. We need to support progressive state initiatives like this. And then it's the local governments, our state governments, and they're just as important. In fact, it's because they're largely invisible to us. We've more or less spent all our attention on what's going on nationally. We need to learn what's going on in our own states and support where we can. And one of his points is that we need to really encourage ourselves and people we know to run for the school board, run for a county supervisor. And that is a message that some of us are actually doing. Some of us are actually running for school board and county supervisors this year. So what we keep up with, this is something new that we've added. So the last one here is one that we met with Bill McKibben. And the question is what does democracy have to do with the climate? And McKibben is an educator, author, climate advocacy leader. He's well renowned. He's the starter of 350.org. And so the point that he was making to us is essential national state election depends on informed, motivated legislator. That's really the answer to the question that's being asked here. Actually, we got to this earlier in 2018. Our ECA Mass chapter recognized this and took on supporting the Environmental Voter Project at that time. And that has evolved into our Elders for Sound Democracy. McKibben recognized this 2 years ago, this month. And from that, he started what he calls the third act. And so he recognized the connection between those two, just as we have a couple of years earlier. And so Third Act really is a powerful organization. It's growing very rapidly. It uses media and field organizing power to do their work. They have organized into a nationwide and state working groups, and their focus is really on the street activism. And it's a pleasure to work with them because they take the lead there, and we can bring our, what we do is by joining them in collective and state activism, we bring our elder power to join their elder power. And we collaborate for synergism and great power together. And I just wanted to point out, Sue and I participated in a protest in March. They protested in front of 4 big banks that fund fossil fuel operation. And here we are out in the rain in March in downtown San Diego in front of Citibank. And we were with a group there. There was 103 of these protests all across the country. And it was a real pleasure for us to be part of that. Got a little wet, but we felt really good about it. One of the things I could say, the Third Act is putting on a 4-session training right now for civil disobedience. In March, they're going to close down the Department of Energy in Washington, D.C. So we might join them in that one. And we haven't gotten arrested yet. Well, Sue's gotten arrested once, but I haven't. So we might want to do that. Okay, so moving on here, getting out the vote and countering voter suppression. EAN collaborates with organizing nations turning out the vote of typical non-voters and marginalized communities. And here's a map of the Environmental Voter Project. This is actually 2 years old, but it shows where the states are, and the point of their how they work is they identify environmentalists that don't vote and then provide us the connections to them, urging them to vote. And we don't tell them how to vote, but getting them to vote, they'll vote for the climate. So since we've started working with them in 2018, within our organization, and this is both ECA and Sound Democracy, we've contacted more than 1.5 million voters since 2018. And from this map, you can see the attention is paid on some of the states that are what you would call swing states. Certainly, we'll talk more about what states we're involved in, but these are ones that we have or will be working in, and we will be joining them again in this coming year as we go along. The other activity that we have gotten on to this last year is working with the Civic Center, and this plot here shows the voting or the youth turning 18 in a 4-year period relative to what the margin of difference in voting between the Republican and Democrat in these elections. In other words, there's a very tight margin of victory in these states. And if we can get the majority of these young voters registered to vote, they can easily have a big effect on the outcome of these elections. So we started working with them in August, September of this year. again, this is the Civic Center. And as a result of that, we contacted 192 high schools in 5 states. And what we do is help them have a registration drive where we get the seniors in the high school registered to vote. And there's a very high percentage of them that will vote, and they tend to vote progressively. Joff Baker will be talking more about these 2 activities later. And what can we do? Well, we can form partnerships like this and help get out the vote. We bring our elder power with us on doing that. And one of the things we're going to be doing is, again, future look here, is also working with groups that work with the Hispanic and Black communities to really get them out to vote. So that's an element that we're working on now for the future here. A little bit about our political corruption, authoritarianism, and freedom. Our political corruption action team meets monthly, and our job there is to understand these corruption, authoritarianism actions, to educate about it and publicize that. And how we do publicize it is that by these community meetings, website essays that are, well, it's on our website, and then via our monthly newsletter. What our intention with this is to inform our messaging when we work to get out the vote. In other words, if we don't just talk off the top of our head, we try to be educated about what we're talking about. You know, why should we be working on gun control? You know, why should we get legislators that will work on that? Well, we have to know what we're talking about when we're doing that. And some examples, political corruption. We have been involved in working on both the Ohio and Texas legislations. Here's a cartoon of what's going on in Texas. They want a boundary around their state. They want to keep the Mexicans out, but to keep the pregnant women in. You know, that's how ridiculous this is. Authoritarianism. Well, I talked about the new college thing in Florida. Also, we have instances right here in where we live in our county about school boards being threatened to or take over from authoritarian groups. Another one, everyone should vote and it should be safe. And here's a picture of the indigenous people marching for trying to get their rights to vote. And this was a few years ago. But we are in Arizona where we're working, we're going to be reaching out to them too. So what can we do? We can provide our elder muscle in promoting national state bills initiatives. Okay, a little bit about state team formation. We had state teams in 2020 and 2022, but we mistakenly let them atrophy after the elections were over. We are forming state teams again, and our intention now is to have them as continuously operating states. As David Pepper said, the fight for democracy is continuous, and we want our state teams to be working on a continuous basis. So they are the nodes. What our Central Sound Democracy is going to do is provide startup and follow-up guidance for these, and via our monthly programs to inform and inspire our work and their work as we go. The status, right? So we started our Arizona team in August, and it's been meeting continuously ever since then. So I'll put those up. Florida is in a startup mode. In fact, it's going to have its second meeting right after this meeting is over. So we'll be adding Florida to the team list. Wisconsin is in a planning mode. Their first meeting is going to be in January. And so those are the 3 that we have for sure right now. And again, our intention is to keep them working continually. We are going to look at other states that come along during the course of the year. And our criteria is that we need people in those states that are interested in forming a state team And then we will work with them to make it happen. And whatever training and mentoring and support they need, we will provide that to them. One of the unique projects that we have going on in our state teams is what we call in our regional hot button analysis that Michael Sales is leading, and we're starting this in Arizona. And the idea there is we want to identify what the regional issues are that people that live there are concerned about. Where do they get their information? Who are their thought leaders? And so the idea is for us to really understand how do people in the regions make their decision of who they're going to vote for. And then from that, we're going to use the information to inform our messaging. When we work to get out the vote in those states, we want that to be informing them. So heeding the call, and that is we want to protect our democracy. I should probably say we're fighting for our democracy here. But anyway, we got Uncle Sam on our side, and I think we take advantage of that. And the future generations need us to act. And so, but with that, I'm going to turn it over to Linda to talk about how, or we're going to find out what you all think. So over to you, Linda.
Thanks, John. So now we have an opportunity for some small group interaction, and we have 2 points that we'd like for you to discuss. I think we have about 9 minutes to do that. And following the next segment, where Joff talks about our early plans, we'll have an open discussion about where we go from here. So you might want to share some of the thoughts or some of the discussion that came up in your small groups. And I put in the chat what we'd like for you to consider, 2 points. One of them is one thing you liked about what ESD did this last year. And the other is one thing that you'd like for, one thing you would like more of or would like for us to consider. So those points are both in the chat, and we'll have about 9 minutes to talk about it. So Crystal will put us into groups.
Okay, Joff, over to you.
Okay, slowly reassembling. So what I want to do is share screen.
Joff, before you start,
Yes.
could I just comment that, you know, if you heard something in the breakout or have a thought that you want to share from the breakout, we are going to have a discussion time after Joff's presentation. So jot it down and share it with us then if you would.
So what we're on about now is John let us know what we were up to in 2023. And this is about looking forward now, what our plans are for 2024. And a number of things are redundant, and that shouldn't be boring. It should be reassuring that we sort of know what we're up to now in 2024. So there are really 2 major interests that Elders on Democracy has, and these are in green. And John went into both of these. One is to get out the vote, particularly important this year, and then the second is to combat political corruption. And John went into a bit about how we are going to combat political corruption. But our focus for 2024 is mostly around getting out the vote for obvious reasons, because this is such an incredibly important election year. So there are there are 4 prongs to our efforts this year. And John went into all of them, and I'll do to somewhat greater extent. So one is creating state teams, as he mentioned, and this allows us to work at regional and local levels, promoting young voter registration, working with a civic center, is a second prong. And the third one is working with the Environmental Voter Project, which is basically efforts that are realized through phoning and postcards. And then in all cases, when possible, working with like-minded organizations that are excellent. And so this year, prominent among those organizations are the Civic Center, Third Act, and the Environmental Voter Project. So starting with creating state teams. So right now we're in the throes of readying state teams for the 2024 election. And John is doing yeoman work in Arizona, creating the leadership structure and planning then, once that's created in Arizona, to replicate that or repeat that in other state teams. In that state and in others, we're working with Third Act and other organizations. And I should say that state teams are also now forming in Wisconsin and Florida, and we hope to begin doing that in other states as well. John mentioned hot button action items or action teams, and I'll say a bit more about that. So here are some kinds of things that our state teams have done in the past, and some of our state teams this year will do some of those things, maybe some new things as well. But friends and family letters is one category that we've taken in the past. A second, which we did in the last election cycle, is to take selfies and share those in social media. And then flyers for Get Out the Vote for progressive organizations, for example, progressive congregations. Getting out the vote in college campuses. And then finally, learning how to work in Hispanic and Black communities to get out the vote. So some state teams will do some of these, some will do others, maybe some will do all. About hot button action teams. So the idea here is really to turn out the vote in highly contested congressional districts. And the sequence of steps here is first to identify hot issues by obvious ways, news sources, social media, etc., conversations. And those then, of course, can be very local. For example, in Arizona, there's a hot issue around water. So once a hot issue or two have been identified, then to mobilize local ESD members to ally with other activists in the area. Meet regularly to decide what to do next, and then integrate state and congressional turnout efforts. So that's the hot button strategy. So that's also within our state team effort. So now I'm going to turn to the second prong of what we're going to do in 2024. And this is to promote the youth vote. And in fact, it turns out that with an amazing statistic, 76% of young registered voters actually vote in presidential elections, right? But in fact, only half of youth are registered. So here's an opportunity. With less than 10 hours a month, you can join Elders Action Network and the Civic Center on this effort to promote the vote and to recruit high schoolers to register. John mentioned the metrics around this that are compelling before, and I'll do it again because they're so cool. So what you're looking at here with these bar graphs, are you looking at data from 3 states, Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Michigan. And if we just look at Pennsylvania, between 2020 and 2024, there were 620,000 kids who became a voting age. But in fact, the margin of victory in that election was 82,000. In Arizona, even more dramatic. A margin of victory was 10,000, and 360,000 kids turned 18 and could vote if they were registered. So you can see here on the right, there's an opportunity. The screen is obscure here, in a meeting in January to register for the vote, and links here to how to do that. Contact Teresa Flaherty or her email address. So that's a second prong, and one that's very cool. And then more about the Environmental Voter Project. Again, another high impact activity. EVP we've been working with for a number of years. And their strategy is simple. What they recognize is there strikingly are some very strong environmentalists among us in the US who don't vote. In fact, 15 million of them. Since 2018, the EVP has contacted 10 million of them and compelled 1.5 million to vote. Again, metrics are always very motivating to all of us, I'm sure. So if we look at data now, for example, from Nevada, non-voting environmentalists in Nevada, 103,000. The 2020 vote margin, 33,000. In Arizona, the non-voting environmentalist count was 216,000, and the margin of victory in that election was 10,000. So that, to me, is very motivating to get involved in this, and I'm certainly going to do that. And if you want to do that, go to our link here to get going in 2024 on this. And Nathaniel Stennett is having a webinar on this on January 17th at 8 p.m. I, for one, am going to tune into that. So with that, I want to close with an inspirational quote from an incendiary college professor I had for philosophy. Angela Davis said, "I am no longer accepting things that I cannot change. I'm changing things that I cannot accept." And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Paul.
Thank you, Joff. And we've got a lot to chew on between our, what John had to say about, everything that's brought us here. Joff looking forward a little bit, and some great interactions in the breakout sessions about what is feeling good to us and our aspirations for elders action going forward into this election cycle. So we now have a little bit of time set aside for comments, Q&A, and so if there's anything interesting that you'd like to share from your breakout, but we really want to focus on looking ahead out through the next year. What are some things that you think are important that we focus on, or that you want to bring to the attention of the group, focusing more on what we can do than kind of the crisis that brought us here, because I think we're all very engaged in all the news about that. But what's really important is what are we going to do about it? So virtual and physical hands, welcome, and I'll do the best I can to spot. If I miss a hand, you can shout it out, or somebody can let me know. So on that basis, I am looking for hands. And Dr. Junius Pressey, I'd like to recognize you.
All right, thank you so very much. I want to thank Ron for inviting me to this meeting. I worked with him and Jeff Hively with the Elders Climate Action. And one of the questions that I have, this is great information, but the question that I have, if you're going to try to get the youth out to vote, my question is, how is this going to be funded to get out the vote? The get out the vote is not going to just be done by Facebook. It's not going to be done by Twitter. It's going to have to be done by putting people on the ground. And it's going to take money to do that. And we've seen that from the various political parties. They put all kinds of money in television ads and what have you, but they're not touching the hearts of the individuals that we're trying to attract. And so my question is, what kind of funding is going to be available to get people down on the ground and put together programs where you're going to get in front of these young people, one, to educate them about the seriousness of being involved in the political process. Because if they don't know, you said 76% will vote in a presidential election, but then only half will vote in local elections. That is because they don't understand the impact of local politics, whether it's at the mayoral level or whether it's at the school board level, the impact that it will have on their lives. So you're going to have money in education to make sure that you touching these individuals. That's just my question is funding going to be available to make sure that we put people on the ground? Thank you.
Thank you, Junius. Really great point. And I think that gets to the question of partnerships is what are the organizations that, you know, are ready to make that impact, that need the resources, where the resources can be used well. And then we would want to engage with those organizations, form partnerships that might involve fundraising or some networking with other organizations that might have resources to share. So that's a great point, and we should definitely follow up on that. And so hopefully we could talk later about some specific ideas. And you know, I know that well, I'm going to stop right there and recognize Shirley. Shirley, you're muted.
Yep. Okay. It's really exciting to see, you know, all in one big lump, you know, what all you have to and where you're going. As I told the little group, you know, this is where I'm putting my effort, and I have a small elders group here in Sierra Foothills. We're going to be doing that, and I think that his point about, you know, help the young people understand the impact, you know, because I work a lot with the climate issues. And work locally. You know, we have an election locally coming up in March, for instance. Let's start there, you know, and start getting people out now to work on that, and as well as the bigger one that's coming later. But it's good training ground for us, you know, to actually start there. So anyway, just applauding what all you've done and where we're going, and it's fun to be able to, you know, get our local group involved.
Thank you, Shirley. Other folks want to speak at this point?
Oh, can I just add one thing?
Sure.
Work with the churches, people of faith. I don't know if Ken Winter is here or not, but it seems that can be a really important way to do it. We have a couple, particularly in Auburn. Well, actually, we do have, but I think working with the churches might be a very good addition.
Thank you, Shirley. Michael.
Yeah, I think that, you know, disinformation and misinformation are really plaguing our politics, and I think taking an activist stance on this is an ambition that I would have for ESD, and for I think in particular, while I appreciate the comment that was made a few moments ago about person-to-person contact. You know, I've been doing a fair amount of work with young voters and studying young voters, and they really are engaged with social media. And if we want to bring facts to the fiction that is continuously put forward by conspiracy theorists and other uninformed people, and people who actively want to take over our politics, social media is a place to get yourself in gear. And I would like to see ESD take that on in a concerted fashion.
Thank you, Michael. Other comments? Quiet group today. John?
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to Shirley's comment about working with the churches. we did that in the past and we will continue doing that. What we have done, and Therese is somewhere here, but what we do is put together flyers to go into the church and synagogue bulletins, weekly bulletins, and tell them, here's what you need to do to make sure you're registered to vote. And each state has its own laws. Make sure if you're going to vote early, you have to do this, whatever the cautionary things are. And what the Pennsylvania group learned this past year was that they could also add into that a little civic lessons as they went along, or some interesting things about the civic history of the particular state. So we're on to that, and we intend to do that and work with, we will work with any group that brings people together and are concerned about our democracy. And certainly working with the churches is a dominant way to do that. So be assured.
Thank you. Jeff Haverly.
Hi, everybody. It's good to see everybody. Following up on Michael Sales' point, social media, do we know what the age groups usage of the different social media outlets is, and which one would be, is there one that would be better to work in than others and work that way, or what would be the best way to get that focus going? Thank you.
Instagram.
Instagram, and I believe what's that other one that all
TikTok.
Yeah,
TikTok.
TikTok. Yeah.
But Facebook is the social media medium of choice for our age bracket, and we don't use it nearly as much as we could. And the other two are there, and it's worthy of further inquiry.
We need a group to do a close focus on this and come up with a strategy, really. Roderick.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a comment and an observation. It's pretty cool to meet Shirley virtually. Shirley, I live in Sacramento, and
Good.
The geographic impact of ESD nationally is obvious, but locally it has a lot of potential, I believe, from the churches to school boards, and you can even draw a line from the foothills through Truckee, where John is, all the way to Reno, all the way to Sparks and Carson City. And that's, I just want to make that point, that if we put our minds together and dedicate some of our time to work together, we can make a pretty big impact, even in January and February.
I'm putting my email in there. Let's talk.
All right. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Rod. And I have lost track of the time, so I don't know if we still have time left or not. Is anybody doing any timekeeping to back me up?
Paul, let's turn it over to Amy.
Okay.
And then we can keep the mic open here, or keep it on for people who would like to hang around after we're over. So go.
Perfect. Over to you, Amy. And thanks everyone for some great comments.
Okay, so we'd like to begin by thanking each and every one of you for everything that you have done during the past year to address the pressing issues facing our planet. Each thing that you have done, no matter how small it may seem, has made a difference, and the fact that we have done it together has amplified the impact. It's encouraging to remember that a snowflake, an individual snowflake, is one of the smallest constructs in nature, but when they stick together, they have a powerful impact. We've chosen the song Dancing in Front of the Guns, which was first released by Libby Roderick in 1991 to close our year together. While we are more than fortunate not to be personally facing actual guns, we are, as elders in a global family, facing more than a few challenging issues: the threat to our democracy, climate change, ever-escalating regional wars, persistent social injustice issues and concerns about the kind of world that we are passing on to future generations. The song's lyrics are relevant in that they help us remember that each one of us must choose to do all that we can to give our individual talents to resolving these challenges. The phrase in the song, "I'd rather hold you close as we march forth loving and brave," reminds us that we are stronger when we work together and that we have each other to depend on when the road to our goal seems long and fraught with barriers. At the times when we may feel frightened and hesitant to move forward, we are reminded that we are the elders. We have faced huge challenges before, and that we would rather be singing in the face of our fears and dancing in front of the guns as long as we're here. Our next town hall meeting will be on January 17th, and we look forward to seeing you then. We have each other, we are strong, we are determined, and we have much to do together in 2024.
Bravo.
And Crystal will play this song for us. I hope you all enjoy it.
And please stick around for discussion if you have a few more minutes for just holiday greetings, continue our discussion period, whatever. We'll be around for a while.
Facing the guns again, we have faced them before. Humanity's longing after so many deaths for something more human than war. But part of me whispers, take your body and run away. Leave the vision to somebody else, and I hear myself say, but I'd rather be dancing at the edge of my grave. I'd rather be holding you close as we march forward, loving and brave. I'd rather be singing in the face of my fear. I'd rather be dancing in front of the guns as long as I'm here. Life is so dangerous that there's little to fear. Life is so possible, every breath the frontier, and they brought out the guns once again, 'cause they haven't a clue that we could be dancing the whole human race. Each one must choose, and I'd rather be dancing at the edge of my grave. I'd rather be holding you close as we march forward, loving and brave. I'd rather be singing in the face of my fear. I'd rather be dancing in front of the guns as long as I'm here. Drum of my heartbeat pounding up through my feet, with millions of lovers urging me on as we take to the streets, as we face the terror. If I leave here before my time, one thing's for certain, I'll go dancing and I'll go alive. And I'd rather be dancing at the edge of my grave. I'd rather be holding you close I'd rather be dancing in front of the guns as long as I am here. Dance with me as long as I'm here.
Great piece of work.
So here we are. So we're just going to leave the Zoom room open, totally informal. No moderation. So if you want to say hi, say hi.
I will. I'll say hi.
Hi,
I've been part of this group with you a long time ago, but in spirit, because I'm doing lots of different kinds of things in our world. But I just wanted to stop because it's so great, isn't it, on a Zoom to look into the faces of all of you and just thank you so much for all of the incredible actions and things that you've been doing over this year. And the last thing I want to put in again, because some of you know I've taken on transforming education in the United States. So that's where a lot of my energy is. And it's so clear to me that we are not educating for democracy. You know, in our bodies and our emotions and whatever, we raise people that actually do not have the, you know, the experience of what it means to be in democracy. So I just thank you so much, and I will always be your partner. I'm out there. I'm making phone calls all year long, and I will see you for sure with the voter registration project. So thank you. That's what I want to say. Thanks.
Thanks, Ann.
You, Ann. Pam, what do you got to say? I was just calling.
I'm so sorry I had to leave. I have rats in my car.
Oh, no.
The exterminator just came. Well, so I had to walk away, but I love what you're doing. I think you're doing a great job. And yeah, I was in a small
Sorry
group,
to
had a
catch you.
lot to say that was very positive.
Thank you.
Use mouse magic.
They don't like peppermint. Put peppermint in under the hood of your car. I speak from experience.
So I want to respond to Dr. Pressy's point. Do you prefer to be addressed as Dr. Pressy or by your first name? Well, anyway, I wanted to just respond to your point about making sure that we focus not just on our own activities, but what we can do to support and partner with organizations that are capable of doing constituency work at the grassroots, especially with younger voters, with voters of color, with urban voters, with different groups of voters who've been intentionally repressed and marginalized. And so there are organizations like the Movement Voter Project that do a really, really good job of identifying, mentoring and funding grassroots get out the vote and empowerment programs. So, and we did campaign to raise money through them in 2020, and we should look at that again. And if other people have suggestions about how we approach this or other organizations that we should be talking to, you know, please come forward with that, because it's really, really important.
Chris, did you want to say anything about what you're going to do in January?
Oh, thank you. Actually, yes, in January, we're going to talk about all the different ways in which we're going to collaborate with the Civic Center. And I think if you haven't heard about it, part of what's so interesting about the Civic Center is that they started a couple of years ago to think about how could they get high schoolers and students registered to vote. They come from Orange County, California, and they were all moms of high schoolers. So the story goes, they got t-shirts and they went out to the beach and they spent a full day trying to register kids to vote. And one of them came back and tells us she spent 8 hours on the beach with a clipboard and presents and all kinds of stuff. And she registered 2 people to vote, one of whom was a homeless man. And then another friend teaches high school. And the friend said, let me give it a try to support kids in high school to run voter registration drives. It was a 4,000 kid high school and they registered 700 kids in a week. And they said, oh, this is a much better way to go. So there are a number of different ways to support them and to leverage their resources to get people to really support the students to run the voter registration drives themselves, and hopefully along the way get some civic education. And you're one of the people on my list as I get my head above water in January. I'd love to talk to you about what your group might be able to do and how we might be able to support your group. I'm also going to want, just for those of you who, anybody who has some ideas, reach out to me and we'll try to set up as much ahead of time as possible. And by the end of January, I know we'll have some things for people to do immediately, and we'll have monthly meetings with opportunities. But I know we have great ideas. I think Jeff out in California and John and Sue are working with their local school boards, and we'll have some support for people who want to do that. So we're lining up a lot of different ways to support those student-run voter registration drives.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff, and then Michael.
Yeah, I just would like to say that Dr. J.B. Pressey, he said I can call him J.B., but I don't know if anybody else has been given that high honor to call him J.B. But he's here in Fort Wayne, I think it is, right? And he's on the board of the Midwest Building Decarbonization Coalition. It's a phenomenal organization, and they focus on getting a lot of the Inflation Reduction Act programs going, particularly with J40 communities. And if you want to get anything going in any of those areas, he's the guy that can help us out. He's an amazing community of workers and to get things done.
Thank you, Jeff. Michael, and then Richard.
Yeah, one of the things that keeps affecting me or in my mind has to do with violent crime and how the right seems to own the narrative on violent crime. And it is the case that violent crime has actually declined slightly in the United States in the last couple of years, but 80% of the population does not believe that that's true and doesn't know that that's true. And having been a victim of violent crime on more than one occasion, I can say that such an experience leaves very long-term and unpleasant scars. And so most of the focus that I hear about in groups like ours is legitimately on injustice and on the injustice of the criminal system and the way in which people of color in particular are victimized by the justice system or the injustice system, however you want to think about it. But that doesn't mean that criminal behavior is non-existent. And most of us, in my experience, think about criminal behavior through the standpoint of social policy and how, and education certainly, and how to address drivers of criminal behavior through changes in social policy. That does not create memes. That does not create what people look at on Instagram or on TikTok. That does not create a video clip of about 30 seconds long where a guy goes in, a person of color goes into a convenience store with a big shopping bag and throws stuff into the shopping bag while security guards stand there and watch. And that has been that clip has been watched hundreds of thousands, if not millions of times. Now, I don't know what to do about that, but I can tell you that we can't let reactionaries dominate the way in which the American populace understands what is driving violent crime and what is being done about it. So that's something it's one of, I can't remember who it is, the person who spoke about education, Anne, talked about being involved with so many scores of things, and that's certainly true of me. But that's something that's on my mind.
Richard and then Therese.
Okay, I just wanted to say, if anyone's interested in knowing a little bit about corruption and money corrupting our politics and stuff, I've been listening to some talks given by a senator named Senator Whitehouse from Rhode Island. And he had, for the last few years, he has been talking about how dark money has bought our Supreme Court. And it's pretty interesting. If you just Google Senator Whitehouse,
It's great.
the scheme is what he calls it. Senator Whitehouse, the scheme. I think he's up to like 25 now that he's given. And the last one was just about a month ago. And it's very interesting. He's very much interested in getting money out of our politics. So I just wanted to recommend that.
Thank you, Richard. That's a good advice. Therese?
I would like to share with you a little story in response to Michael's despair. Philadelphia has just had a new police commissioner appointed, and we are certainly one of those places in the country where everybody worries about violent crime. And we are also a place where there's a lot of effort being put forth to try to change the framework and eliminate cash bail and so on. Our new police commissioner has a history of having left the police force after 25 years because he did not like walking kids out of elementary schools in handcuffs. And then he joined the schools and ultimately became head of the security in the schools. And he just said, no more guns, no more uniforms. We are going to be social service officers and safety officers in the school. In 2 years, the number of arrests went down to like 3% of what it had been for years before. So it's a wonderful example, and that goes on. That's been going on now for quite a few years. Watch us. He's about to take over as chief of our police, which is not an easy job. There's a lot of work to do there. And I don't know how to make that a meme, Michael, but I sure wish I could. So a little optimism, not much, but a little. John, you're muted.
I just want anybody who hasn't spoken up who'd like to say, share something before we call it a day, please. Well, then, thank you, everybody. Yeah, we will keep pumping out our community meetings. It's always the third Wednesday of every month. Our intention is to educate and to inform and to hopefully to inspire. And we have lots of work to do. We have lots of jobs that are open. please let us know. We're going to send out the video, the PowerPoint slides from this presentation, plus the recording of it. So you'll each get that, and we will get your, we now have your contact information. So we will send out a note and say, hey, if you'd like to learn more, we're glad to talk to you further about how you can get involved. And we enjoy those kind of conversations. They happen all over the country. Everybody has a different point of view, and on and on. So we invite you to join us. We try to have fun while we do our work. And anyway, thank you. Have a good holiday season. We look forward to seeing you again in the new year. And we got a busy year ahead.
Yeah. Thank
John,
you.
John,